Morning. It is Friday, February 19th, 2021. This is the virtual special budget meeting, workshop meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at exactly 9 o'clock a.m. We'll start off with a roll call of commissioners to see if we can formally conduct business. We'll start off with Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Paluzzi.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Shanowski.
Good morning here.
Morning, and you've got Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a full complement and are able to formally conduct business at this special budget workshop meeting. From there, I'd like to welcome all our watchers. We're glad you're watching and invite you in the future to participate. You need to register in ahead. The instructions are on the bottom of the agenda. Those that have registered to speak today include Walter Brittingham, Patricia Davis, Julie Davis, unrelated, Terry Eskew, and Gary Glass. Welcome and thank you for participating. We will call on you at the appropriate times during the meeting to solicit your input and feedback. Thank you very much. With that, I want to recognize that we put support documents when they are ready. Support documents that support our agenda topics are embedded into the agenda and available online so that you can look at what we're looking at. Some of those support documents today include the next item, which is correspondence. We've received 3 letters from Mark Saunders, President of the RBHA, Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association, a letter from the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee, and a letter from Debbie Angus, citizen in town. All 3 of those are relative to the Tot Lot topic. With that, I want to recognize that this special budget and workshop meeting, the purpose of it is to continue discussion of a draft budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, including capital improvement program as presented by the city manager. And as you'll see on the agenda, there are some specific topics that are kind of biggies that I like to highlight, and they're in front of you. Speaking of which, before we go to the city manager, I would like to alert everybody that in terms of the Tot Lot topic, there are some challenges on bringing it forward. We're not yet ready to resume. I have the concurrence of City Manager Sharon Lynn on that, so I'm pulling the Tot Lot from today's agenda. There will be no discussion on it, and we will resume when we're ready at some unknown time into the future. The worst case is that we already have money in the budget for a Tot Lot of various sizes and specifications. And if we don't resolve the Tot Lot size and specifications of what we're going to do till after the budget's adopted, I'm at least comfortable that, again, there's money in the budget. And at that time that we do resolve it, we can look at the funding at that time and possibly even have monies left over if the project is smaller than we have budgeted for. So with that, we're going to go to the city manager to present her budget. This, I believe, is budget meeting number 4. Is that right?
That's correct, ma'am. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Yes, this is budget meeting number 4, 4 of 6, depending on when you would feel it necessary to continue with the budget discussions. Nothing has really changed from the last time we met, and we continue to make, I should say, just minor tweaks to the budget depending on any specific day of the week, and tie out the monthly report, and Mr. Dukes finalizes some numbers. But that continues and will continue until the end of the fiscal year. But for the most part, the summary of the entire budget is basically the same. We have a balanced budget. We have a healthy capital improvement plan that again presents, I'll say, not necessarily its challenges, but it's again a healthy CIP. But it's all necessary that we continue to work on this and continue with our important infrastructure and equipment. With that said, I would entertain any questions that the mayor and commissioners might have. We can proceed as you wish. I think we've gone over the expenses, the revenue stream, obviously, took a hit this year because of the pandemic, especially with parking revenue, but we made up for that and more with our real estate transfer tax. So it puts us in a very good position to move forward with the budget, and I recommend that we do so.
Thank you, Sharon. We'll entertain questions. I would suggest that we focus on the 46-page support document in front of us. For the, I'm not sure that is embedded in the agenda yet. We'll make sure that is shortly afterwards. For organization of this meeting, it might be best to, as best we can, go in sequence from page 1 to 46. If you have any questions, so that we can be able to follow you along. And then after we've exhausted all those 46 pages and general questions, then we'll be able to move on to the other specific topics listed there. Commissioner Coluzzi?
Thank you. I just have two questions. One is the merge signs. I think the Transportation Committee is going to recommend that a few more signs be made for basically help with pointing people in the right direction as far as bicycles. And so I'm wondering if we need to look at that as an increase in the budget potentially, or is that something we're talking about 2 or 3 signs, perhaps, small ones?
Commissioner, I think that we're in good shape to cover that within the assigned budget.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing is when I looked at the adjusted income, I'm guessing that the increase, well, I guess the question is the Grove Park parking, has that now been included as income?
Mr. Dukes, can you answer that? I know that we have a presentation by Commissioner Gossett on that. I don't think that we've included that necessarily. Because the commissioners haven't finalized it.
Well,
parking meters in Grove Park.
That's right. You're exactly right, Sharon. They haven't finalized it, and so there's been nothing added to the budget for that.
Okay, so I thought I saw a change or something in the income. There were 2 things that were in red. One was the increase, I believe, in potentially the sale of 84 Kent, and then there was another increase which I thought was parking, but perhaps it's something else.
Yeah, well, the money for the tree ordinance of 675 that you see in red, that was there at the last meeting, so there's been no change since the last period. The
Okay.
84 Kent you see online on page 4, $1,045,000. That was at the last meeting too. And I think you might recall that what we did with that, the major portion of that was put into debt reduction, and with balance going to contingency and other items that balance the budget.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, thanks. I wanted to note that on the revenue side, we really are looking good this year. I mean, our if I'm reading this right, our actual year to date, which with still several months to go, is essentially we've met the budget we originally set. And that's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So it's great news. I assume that means we'll go over the original budget by the end of the fiscal year. And so in that sense, I think next year's looks very reasonable. I have some questions about the CIP, but I'm going to wait till we get to that part. But I will just note that on the actual year to date for capital expenses, it's saying 4 million when that disagrees with the document that we got for the current fiscal year. But I think that's a topic for this afternoon's discussion, so I will hold that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please remember to reference any page numbers, and I think you have a good program. Let's talk about general budget questions and comments, and then when we exhaust that, we can go to the CIP program and address those. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Just looking at parking revenue specifically on page 4, from account numbers 402-100 through 402-350, there are combined about 6 revenue sources for parking. And we're looking at about $1.3 million over of what we really have accomplished for this year. And I just am curious, City Manager Lynn, that you're comfortable with that figure, that you feel we're going to come back that strongly, if you will? I mean, that compares to what we were in 2020 actual and going back to that for 2022.
Well, sorry. I am comfortable with the number because obviously, as I say every year, we budget very conservatively with everything else in the budget, but not knowing, I do feel as though we can make some comparison with some historical data that we do have, even with some decreased revenue with Meterless Monday, and projecting through for our costs. We continue to increase revenue with our pay by phone parking. We decrease coins, which increases total parking revenue. And so these 6 or 7 line items I do feel comfortable with.
Right. And along those lines, just for clarification in my mind, on that same page, way down, account 409-170, convenience fees, are those the fees that are related to the parking meters? It's approximately $21,000.
Well, it could be most of it probably is parking meters, but some of it could be just other credit card transactions.
Okay, all right. And then just again, for clarification in my mind here, further down that page at 480110 grants other, we're at projecting 150,000. But this year, in actuality, it shows we've received a little over $1 million. Could you help me understand the great variance there?
Commissioner, this is Evan. I believe the variance there is caused by the large amount of grant revenue we received for the canal dock. So the bond bill appropriation and some of the larger appropriations we received for the canal dock were charged to the grants other for this year that we're not expecting, obviously, to receive next year.
Okay, but then we also, a little further down, we call out the LICRA or LRCIA grant specifically at $387,500. So is that exclusive of that $1 million?
That number includes just the amounts that we received from the LRCIA in the form of checks. So that was from the fundraising efforts that they did by themselves and issued the 2 checks to the city. And then that $1,092,000 incorporates the Del Dock grant and some of the other grants we received for the project.
And most likely all of that is the dock project, the $1 million?
Correct.
All right. So that's the reason for the great reduction to 150, which kind of follows past years.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
Well, what happens during the year, Commissioner, we occasionally get grants that we really didn't know we were going to get. So if I was a betting man, I'd say that that number will actually exceed the 150 because, police department, of course, theirs are not in that particular line item, but I mean, there are grants that come that we're not necessarily expecting or budgeting for.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that positive thinking and more revenue in that regards. One last question, if I have in this documents, on page 25, under expenditures, mayor and commissioners, legal services, we're projecting 200,000 is what the budget was for 2020, but we're well over that for our actual this year. Do we feel comfortable in that figure of going forward with the 200,000?
Well, I would say that I'm hopeful that the commissioners will cut back on their legal expenses in any way that they can. This is again a conservative number without knowing what is before us. I think that we can continue to make that 200,000 projection.
Great. And this is also exclusive of legal expenses for Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments, or is this wrapped in there?
There are about 6 line items, 6 departments
Okay.
that have an item for legal fees.
Okay, that's fine, as long as we're comfortable with that 200 there. And I don't see any other in the other legal services lines. They're
I
basically
can get you
parallel
the
from
detail, and I can summarize that and show you the amount, if you'd like, after the meeting, what all those legal fees are in each department.
Sure, at some time for the next meeting, that would be fine. Thanks, Bert. And that concludes my questioning for those pages.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jay Legree?
Your opening statement, you talked about the discussion concerning the so-called tot lot. I think a lot of people are watching this and listening to this in the hopes that they could find some more discussion about that. Did I hear you correctly saying that when will we discuss that? That's my question.
We've got some challenges to resolve, Commissioner, as I mentioned earlier, and I don't have a definitive timeline. It obviously would be noticed in a future agenda, but whether it's at the next budget meeting, which is likely, but I can't confirm. And again, I'm not willing to entertain any further conversation on that today. Anything else?
I'm going back on mute.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Mayor. And a big thanks to the city manager and Bert and Evan and your team for pulling together all of these documents and keeping us so up to date. It's very helpful, and it makes our work as commissioners a lot more efficient and effective. I do have a question for the city manager regarding the triangle area on State Road, exit entrance 1B. Is there a line item in here, Sharon, for the landscaping and planting of that area? I do know that there is a draft plan that does need to be updated given the new signage in that triangle. But I know we've talked some about this in the past, and I know that the city has done some work with DelDOT to I believe, get approval to be able to move ahead with appropriate plantings there.
So you're correct, Commissioner Byrne. I believe Liz is in the room there, but I believe we have approximately $50,000 in here for the planting. Is that right, Liz?
I don't I can't recall if we put it in the budget or not, because we had 2 other major landscape projects planned for this budget season. So I don't remember, but the 50,000 would have been the number that we specified for it if it was there.
Yes, and I believe we have written permission from DelDOT to go ahead and proceed with that. And we were waiting for the sign, for the merge sign to be erected at the triangle, so we can then proceed with this. So I think it's a matter of having the money, and actually I have a letter into Senator Lopez for maybe some additional funding for that.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the 50,000 is in the budget for this next budget year?
Yes.
Okay, and so the 50,000 obviously includes whatever landscaping and planting has to take place there. Does it include irrigation or a water source for those plants?
Liz, do
Yes,
you remember?
it did.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, the irrigation was included with that.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw in the draft plan that you sent me recently, Liz. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing more on the planning for that as the season moves ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I know we wanted to make that our second gateway into the city, and with the funding there, we put it on hold because obviously we cut back on several CIP line items. That was one of them, but we do intend to continue with that.
Wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Commissioner Sernowski?
My apologies. I was on mute. No questions for the city manager, but I would like to ask Mayor that in the next agenda, I had been looking at the fees associated with on page 4, the mercantile licenses and other fees associated that the city takes in. I'd like to just ask that we call out that specifically in the next budget meeting. I've been working at looking at those fees to see if they are adequate and up to what other communities charge. And unfortunately, I just did not have a chance to have recommendations or further discussion for this meeting, but I'd like to outline it in the next budget meeting if that's okay.
Well, Commissioner, we can certainly do that, but you may not recall that I believe at budget meeting number 1, we brought that up and actually tasked the city manager with taking a year-long review of all the license fees and all the fees that we have. So that would be more of a project for next year. So if you want to entertain that at our next meeting is essentially our last meeting before we have a final meeting and go to a vote. If you recall, our budget starts April 1st, if I remember correctly, and we vote at the regular March meeting. So it really gives us one more meeting after this. I'm not sure there's enough time.
Yeah, I do remember that, and I did have a brief conversation with the city manager. These are just a few low-hanging fruit recommendations I'd make, nothing controversial or substantial.
Sure, get together with Sharon to remind her of those so that we can, you can organize some support document, if you would, to for an expeditious review of that next meeting. That'll be fine. Anything else?
Everything else, had to do with your opening statements and the CD and the CIP, so I can hold off
All
on
right,
that.
thank you. Commissioner Gay?
I just had a couple follow-up questions. It's along the lines of what Edward said about fees, and you reminded us that the city manager was going to take a look at all that. Are impact fees in that mix of things that are going to be evaluated over the coming year? Because I think we've talked before about how they're really very low, and we really need to take a look at that. So is that one of the things on the list?
Yes.
Okay, great, wonderful. And I guess the other thing I've got two other clarifications. One is going back to the discussion about the triangle, and I'm so glad Commissioner Byrne brought that up. It's a great project. But if it's $50,000, but it's not in the CIP, so it's just in the regular budget at $50,000? Because I missed it. I didn't know it was there because I wouldn't have looked. I would have thought that at $50,000 it would be in the CIP, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, Evan, can you clarify? I thought it was in the CIP.
It's not in the CIP. I think we had discussions about moving it into the operating budget. We'd probably have to go back and take a look at the parks budget and maybe do a budget detail to see where it might be.
And we can get you that for the next
Okay,
meeting. I
I'm
apologize.
curious about it. And then I guess the last thing is we had talked from the very first meeting about prioritizing grants or grant requests the same way that we prioritize other spending. And I don't know that we've really done that. And I don't know what the right time to do that is, whether we finish the budget and then look at the grants or what, but I just want to remind you of that.
Okay.
Well, that was on my list to mention too. Thank you, Commissioner, because I'm glad you remember that conversation, and hopefully we all do. And that was that before we assume that we're going to get any community transportation funds or other grants from our state legislators, we need to vet them through the mayor and commissioners and the city manager so that we can prioritize what we're going to be using the funds for. One person may want to use state legislators' funds for that triangular landscaping. Another one might want to use them for ADA, and then we've got a little arm wrestling to do there. So again, Sharon, maybe you can give us some guidance, not necessarily now, but into the future on how we vet those and how we capture those in the budget.
So yes, Mayor, there's different sources. Obviously, community transportation funds historically in the city have been, the city manager would just, as I recall, in my first year, asking for CTF funds from Senator Lopez and matching funds from Representative Schwarzkopf. And it was usually $50,000 from each. And that was part of the budget. That was budgeted CTF funds. We don't do that any longer because somehow we got away from that. And we had individual interests, as you know, Mayor, asking for different funding for various reasons. So I recall having that discussion offline and really targeting just what we wanted to do, looking at that on a fiscal year and identifying those projects that were of primary concern and those that we would ask for CTF funding. And not have individuals do that, just have the mayor or the city manager request that funding.
Well, perhaps we can have a review of that at the next budget meeting, and just so everybody's in the know, we're transparent about it. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any other commissioners? I think we've tackled and focused on the general budget. Is there any desire to focus on the capital improvement program?
Yes.
Who?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, I have comments on that. Not if you want to. I didn't know whether you would go to the public first on this first part or what.
No, we'll do the public and let them do the entirety of the general budget discussion in a minute. So let's finish our focus on the capital improvement program. We'll start with Commissioner Sernowski, and then we'll go to you, Commissioner Gay.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor, I just want to circle back to your opening comments, and you mentioned that there was money in the budget for the tot lot and that we could utilize that. And it is still in this capital improvement plan ending 2022 for 350. Is that what you were referring to? Or were you referring to the 100,000 that got put in for the year ending 2021?
I'm just saying there's money in there now. It happens to be 350,000. I have a balanced budget. I'm suggesting we just leave it alone. You know, if you can read the tea leaves, you can probably guess that we may or may not need that 350,000, depending on what the scope of that project is. But again, the scope of that project won't be determined until an unknown time into the future.
So, so you'd like us to approve the CIP as it's before us, but without discussing the tot lot at all and the scope of it?
Correct. Correct.
Well, that doesn't seem very transparent. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I actually have a problem with that as well, because, you know, if we don't use all the money, it's like leaving money on the table that could be earmarked for another project. So I think it is in our best interest and to align the budget as realistically as we possibly can. Plus the fact, and I've been saying this from the beginning, because of COVID, because of the deferral of expenses from this year to next year and beyond, you know, we're kicking the can down the road big time. And yet our revenues this year were very strong, and next year, you know, looks pretty good too. And I think this is not the time to kick the can down the road. This is the time to make sure our infrastructure gets done, because we've already seen delays. And, you know, I can certainly accept the, you know, the debt reduction portion of from the sale of Kent Street, for example. But I know that's not all of it. And I think I heard Bert say 750 toward debt reduction and the rest, so another 300 or more, about 300 to other, you know, operating expenses. Well, I'm wondering why can't we earmark that for specific capital improvements? But as an example of the things that I think it's unfortunate they get delayed on, I'll do them by line number because that's easiest. There are some storm sewer repairs on line 19 that are only 50,000 in the, and I guess Kevin is probably in the best position to answer this, but anyway, it's 50,000 for next fiscal year and then 200 after that. You know, can we bring some of that money back? And I got a few others. The LED lights, I still think that, you know, those were already pushed off. They were pushed off 2 full years at 205,000. I'd like to maybe start that now too. And then the two others, the Bayard Stormwater and the Bayard Landscaping, I thought those were important. And so they're on there for the following fiscal year. Now they're big ticket items, but I just wonder if, you know, if we should be pulling some of that back. But the main point of what I'm saying is that in addition to not earmarking the rest of that funds from Kent Street, we're leaving extra money in the budget for a tot lot, and that makes me uncomfortable. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. As far as the tot lot and pushing the can down the road, that's not my intent. I fully expect that we'll take it up at the next budget meeting, budget number 5, which would occur at the March after the March workshop meeting. But I'm letting you know that if we fail to come to a conclusion at that point, there is an option, and that is we just go with the budget as it is. So I'm not intending whatsoever to kick it down the line, but there are some challenges that I need to resolve before we can go forward. That's all I can say right now.
I think you may have misunderstood me. I didn't mean kicking the tot lot down the road at all. I didn't mean that at all. What I meant was a number of projects were already deferred, not the tot lot, other projects were deferred from the current year. And it's those I'd like to see, you know, not, you possibly brought back or not deferred. My comment on the tot lot is only that if we think we're not going to spend 350, I don't want to leave 350 in the budget, because that leaves money on the table that could go to other projects. That's my point about the top.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
I agree with Commissioner Gay. I can't vote for this budget either. I would love to see that money, if we're not going to spend it, to be given back to the city managers. I'm sure there are many things that could be used for. I would love to see our paving increased. I would love to see the stormwater projects be overfunded. What a happy day that would be. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else, any commissioners' comments? If not, we'll go to the members of the public. We'll start with Walter Brittingham. Do you have anything so far only focused on
good
what
morning.
we talked about?
Good morning. Thank you. I think you're doing fine. I don't see in there, though, extra help, and I don't know where to ask the question other than to you, Mr. Mayor, and the commissioners. I think Ann is doing a wonderful job. I think we're backed up, getting unbelievable information given to us, but it's been given to us in the past. But I think there needs to be some backup help for these people that, because you're doing a good job for the methodology of getting the word out to the people, that is the electronics on the YouTube, et cetera. But I think there needs to be an extra person. When you get to that point, it needs to be put in a new position. I think we need to be told salaries of the positions that are there. We haven't been told about, but I think there needs to be a position available to help Ann. Also to help run these meetings so that your staff, your highly technical staff that are running the meetings for you, can be out doing the work that they need to do. And I think provisions need to be made for this year's upcoming budget. A position of that nature, male, female, young, old, I don't care, but it doesn't need Max or somebody like that running the console or whatever type you have to make these meetings possible when their services with all the stuff we're adding needs to be staffed. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Patricia Davis, any comments on the general budget or capital improvement program?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I actually have one comment and one suggestion. If I understood your comment earlier, we're going to keep $350,000 for the tot lot of some configuration, some size in the budget. And my understanding that as any city project that has an expense of greater than $50,000 must go through a competitive bid process. So when we get to that point, whenever that may be, I just hope that the process will be open and transparent, and that the community will be involved and updated on the bidding process and the progress of the tot lot. I do have one request, and it's a security, really a safety issue. It's for the Parks Department, and it does involve the tot lot. There is a sign on one of the gates that says the playground is closed, which is great. You see it from the street. However, there are two other gates that do not have any signage on them, and people are going in and using the tot lot equipment. And obviously, I'm concerned from a safety standard for the state if the equipment is not safe. So I would like to please request that some signage be put on the other two gates, or perhaps they're locked. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Julie Davis, any comments on the general budget or capital improvement program? I've indicated you're not on. Terry Eskew, any comments on the general budget or capital? She's not on. Gary Glass? She's not on.
Hear me?
Gary, any comments on the general budget or capital improvement program?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I just have a couple comments. I absolutely agree that I don't believe in the past there's been bidding for competitive bids for projects over $50,000, and they've been assigned to just one specific company. So I do believe that we should follow the bidding process and allow companies from the local area or anywhere to compete. I also agree that there needs to be complete transparency. I think it's important to most of the citizens, and I know it's important to me. The last thing I'd like to say is that I think it's dangerous somewhat to be dependent upon the transfer tax as a source of revenue. It's a variable fund. It can change. We've had a lot of transfer, a lot of properties change over. And I think that's representative of a turnover in our community. And I don't know personally that I agree that a great amount of turnover is healthy for any community. It certainly seems like for several years we've had an awful lot of turnover, but transfer tax could be here today and gone tomorrow, and I think the city should be aware of that. That's my comments.
Thank you, Gary. With that, we'll end public comment on the general fund and capital improvement program and continue discussion on those two topics before we go to some of these specific topics. Commissioner Sranowski?
Yes, Mayor, I'll make a few brief comments. One, for Patricia Davis, I agree with her comment, but I'll just make clear that if in the next budget meeting we don't come to some clear conclusion on the tot lot, I'm not going to support a budget that includes $350,000 dedicated for it. I agree with Commissioner Gay that line items 19, 33, and 37 should look at being prioritized for this next calendar or budget year. And those are my two comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree?
This is a little bit off topic, but as far as capital improvements for our general fund, we have 2.6 million this year. We've scheduled 3.1 million for FY 2023. And in FY 2024, our CIP for the general fund hops up to 6.5 million. It's not like we're going to be out, we're going to have money flowing out of our ears. It's going to be really tough to get to that 6.5 million CIP on the general fund for 2024. And if you include the enterprise fund, you're looking at 14.2 million for FY 2024. We're going to have to find a lot of money, and now might be the time to start thinking about that before we just hit it full force in next April, and then really hit it in the following April. Those are the words of caution, and we ought to be thinking about that down the road. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sranowski?
Thanks, Mayor. There was I wanted to briefly comment on Mr. Glass's comment regarding the transfer tax, and completely agree with him that it shouldn't be something that we rely on. And I just want to make clear that while the increase in that saved us tremendously this budget year, we've not increased the budget amount for budget year 2022. It's back down to 1.6. So we are not anticipating a transfer tax coming in at the same rate it did this year, which was a wonderful blessing. I just wanted to make that clear to the public.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no other commissioner comments, we'll go on to some of the specific topics. If you note, I put Parks Master Planning, Grove Park Canal Dock funding, and installing parking meters in a portion of the parking lot serving visitors. As far as the Parks Master Planning, what the intent there was just to give the mayor and commissioners one more opportunity to talk about it and the public to comment. It is not in relation to the Lake Gerar Park Master Plan that was done earlier. That will be a future agenda topic at some point. This was really a reaction to commissioners' notes when we first talked about the tot lot and possible expansion. The thought was, should we hire a master planner to look at all the parks to help design them? There was really, I almost didn't put it on this agenda because at the last time, at our last meeting, there was really nobody in favor of it. If you want to comment now, we can close it out or pursue it. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, what you just spoke about, a parks master planning. Now, we have in the CIP budget a parks master planning for Lake Gerar for 2023 for 61,000. Are these two different topics?
I don't know what that, can you clarify, Evan or Sharon, what that funding is for?
It's line 102 on the CIP.
Yeah, I believe that was the engineering estimate that we received to do the planning around the Lake Gerar master plan.
So that is something that I would intend to put on the agenda for a discussion in front of the public to see what the scope of that project is and indeed confirm or affirm whether we want that project or not and at that scale.
But this initially for 2023 is just targeted at Lake Gerar, not a comprehensive park plan for the city, or that's to be determined?
That was just for Lake Gerar.
That's correct.
And then we also, paralleling this, there is a lakes management plan, which is separate than the parks management plan, correct?
Correct.
And that is a Corps of Engineers project, so that really does not impact our budget in a great.
That's correct.
That's correct statement?
Yeah, that's correct. Our share of the project actually was paid just recently. So we actually received a DENREC grant for that, and then we're also receiving matching funds from the Corps. We've also received some funds from the town of Dewey Beach and Sussex County as well.
But that specifically addresses Silver Lake and not Lake Gerar, correct?
Correct. Silver Lake and Lake Comegys.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
Thank you. Perhaps part of my question was just answered, although it still leaves me scratching my head. So when we talk about a parks master planning, is that not kind of a holistic approach to everything that could be and currently is included in all of our city parks, everything from the freshwater lakes to stormwater runoff to green infrastructure to recreation, meaning inclusive playgrounds, et cetera? Or are we segregating these? And I think if we do start segregating each of these, then we start bumping into challenges because we're not looking at the larger picture of what goes on. And so to me, parks master planning includes environmental study, includes recreational opportunities, it includes the kind of the watershed, the runoff, the green infrastructure, the trees, plantings.
So, Commissioner,
I'm asking for clarification.
I think it has to be defined because our original discussion was just way too general. And I think you articulated some of the perhaps reasons to do it.
Commissioner Byrne, this is Liz. I can tell you that your order that you're stating is actually if we really want to be technically correct, is the right way. So you would do a comprehensive system plan to include all of the parks holistically. So it'd be parks, recreation, open space. And then you can break it down further if you wanted to do a specific green infrastructure plan, you wanted to do individual parks plans, those would all come after the main system plan.
Sure, thanks, Liz. And to me, that seems to be the approach that we need to be taking. I don't know how you can segregate out one entity, because when you do something, it impacts all of the other areas. And so there needs to be the broad comprehensive thinking, I think. And I'm assuming that our new comprehensive development plan is going to call for this kind of approach. At least I'm hopeful that it will.
So can I just clarify one or two things? Last year and last year's budget, not this current year, fiscal year 2020, we had a consultant come in and do a parks, just a very brief parks plan. One of his recommendations was called for a master plan. So in thinking of continuing with that recommendation, we are concentrating right now on the parks. Of course, what you're saying for a holistic plan with everything included, that would certainly come before the commissioners at some future time, because that should be done. I agree that should be done, and it involves several different sources, several different funding sources. So we're trying to get there step by step, if you will.
Well, I'd like to see some kind of white paper, if you will, or some kind of outline detailing how we could approach it and what our timeline might be in the future. Commissioner Legree.
Are we going to talk this afternoon about the Silver Lake Management project and how long that's going to take, and how we can mesh that with the overall stormwater management plan, which would also include, as Commissioner Byrne just said, that park and green infrastructure is a big part of stormwater management. And are we going to talk about that this afternoon at all and get a timeline?
Well, it's not on the agenda, but we have the liberty to add things like that. I would say let's get through our little list here, Commissioner, and then put it on your list to bring back up.
The reason I'm asking is that we desperately need a funding protocol for stormwater management. I'm looking at $830,000 for FY 2023 on stormwater management, followed by a $600,000 estimate for 2024. And I don't want that to go away. So I guess my answer is yes, let's do it.
Yeah, so if you would bring it up again when we finish the meters in the parking lot. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go to the members of the public. The topic is solely Parks Master Planning, but not specific to the Gerar Park Master Plan. Walter Brittingham?
No comment.
Thank you. And Patricia Davis?
No comment.
Thank you, Patricia. Julie Davis? She on yet? No. Terry Eskew? No. Gary Glass?
No comment.
No comment. Thank you, Gary. With that, we'll move on to the next individualized topic. That's Grove Park Canal Dock funding. Do we even have anything to say about this topic, or have we exhausted it? Okay, with that, we'll go to the public. Walter Brittingham, anything about the canal dock?
Thank you.
Patricia Davis?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Gary Glass?
No comment.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, if I may, just a question on this, and I know it's on the agenda for this afternoon on the parks management, that includes the city dock specifically, but have we determined a maintenance plan or any of that nature? Is that a topic to discuss now or this afternoon when we're speaking of the ordinance chapter?
I think the maintenance program is probably better articulated and discussed at the afternoon meeting. This is more intended if we had any funding ideas, mechanisms, or questions.
Well, I guess I still am not clear as to what, if we have determined an annual expense that we need to have a line item in the budget for either expense or revenues, because I know there's discussions about commercial uses of the dock, licensing fee, this type of thing. So I'm just not quite sure where that conversation belongs. But I don't want to have it this lost in the mire there, because it is certainly important, and it's a new asset to the community, and I think we need to be responsible of how we manage it going forward.
Sharon, are you able to respond?
Yes, Mayor, Commissioner Gossett. Ms. Lingo did come up with a maintenance plan working with Director of Public Works, and we can again give you that and present that to you.
And that ties with the dollar amount?
Yes.
Okay, great.
City manager,
Go ahead.
isn't the LRCIA responsible for the first 2 years?
They are first 2 years, yes.
So
And
it's
based-
not something that's budgeted?
Well, the budgeted effect was minimal. I mean, we have some staff time in there. That's part of regular duties for the streets department and the park and recreation department. So the city's part of that was minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess my concern though is that when you look at the change order that reduced the cost of the dock, it's $66,344. So, and that's the reduction of 2 years of project maintenance. So I guess I haven't, either I've seen and I've forgotten, the document that Ms. Lingo prepared, but if it's minimal, I'm just curious of how that minimalization took place, that 66,000 is how we arrived at that for the change order versus what we're actually going to put in the budget for potential expenditures for maintenance for the dock for the couple of years. That's all. I'm just kind of want to put the figures together so we know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Well, how about if we take a look at it again this afternoon?
That'd be
if
great.
that's acceptable.
Sure.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to the next topic, installing parking meters in a portion of the parking lot up at Grove Park, an area that serves visitors to Grove Park, Rehoboth Beach Main Street, Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center, Rehoboth Beach Museum, and the Grove Park Canal Dock. Commissioner Gossett, you introduced this. I'll let you reintroduce it today, if you would, please.
Certainly, I thank you very much. Again, I'm just looking at continued revenue sources to support our general operations and future CIP projects. And I think that Grove Park and the parking lot there is an opportunity for us to have some additional revenue that doesn't necessarily affect an impact on our residents and taxpayers, but certainly for our visitors. It's free parking, and I think with the additional attraction of the city dock there, we're going to have additional people that want to participate in that. And it's just an opportunity that I think we need to take a very hard look at. I did some calculations, and they're part of the documents, but basically it comes down to, in my opinion, and my basis, is that we could pick up around $62,000, $63,000 a year of revenue based on that. And that's allowing for no charge of parking during the farmers market days. It also allows spaces, 6 spaces set aside for the use of the museum, for Main Street, and also for the visitor center. That just carries forward exactly what is available there today. In fact, the signage at Grove Park is states parking for chamber, museum, and visitor center reserved 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and reserved for the visitor center Saturday and Sunday 9 to 1. So there's already those signs there that reserve those spaces, and that certainly would continue in my proposal. Again, I'm just trying to look at some revenue. I know that we've made a commitment for Meterless Monday, which impacts our meter revenue of about 120,000. And then we also have the support of our downtown businesses of the blocking off parking spaces so they could have on sidewalk dining. And just a quick calculation, we don't know yet how many spaces are going to be requested by the restaurants because their requests for permits are still out. But based on the the length of our parking season, which is 115 days. Each day, each space is worth $36 in revenue. So that's about $4,140 per space for the season that we're committing again to our downtown businesses. That's per space, yet we don't know how many spaces that the restaurants are going to request to use. So again, this is just a little bit of an opportunity to try to make some of that revenue up. And I think it's going to be a very popular space with the addition of our new asset of the dock. And I just want to pursue it, I believe.
Commissioner Gossett, have you checked with the museum, Main Street, and the visitor center on their needs or suggestions? My assumption is that the reserved parking spaces would be specific to visitors, not the employees at these agencies.
I have not spoken with them, but I'm just duplicating exactly what is available now. It would be their discretion whether it's staff or visitors based on their operating hours. And again, this is just an approximation, as you would note on the second page of my operational aspect of the program. It's open to suggestions or variants as needed. Nothing's cut in stone here, but again, I'm going forward with exactly what is available to those businesses, operations there at Grove Park currently.
Thank you. Comments from the commissioners. Commissioner Sharnowski.
Sure. Commissioner Gossett, at the last meeting, you mentioned 6 spots dedicated for those 3 businesses. Is that still what you're saying, or you're saying it would be open-ended from 9 to 5?
No, I would say that still 6 spaces during the hours of operation of those businesses. And that's exactly what they have now, and that is what is reserved for them. There truly is, in looking at it, there is no enforcement of that, to be honest with you, other than the museum has taken upon itself proactively, and I think it's a good thing, to place cones in their spaces in front of their museum during their open hours. So again, those processes would be carried forward. Again, the 6 spaces is exactly what's available now. If we find that it is not meeting the needs of the visitor center or Main Street or the museum, that can be adjusted, and obviously that would have an impact on the revenue source, but I'm just carrying forward exactly what is available now.
Thank you.
I just have a couple more things, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I think my fear is that 6 spaces probably isn't enough during those hours of operation. So I do think it's important to talk to those 3 business entities before moving forward. But even if we were to say, it's metered parking from 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock on, I think it's still beneficial to the city. I think my question is, though, what's the expense to implement something like this? Those parking kiosks are not inexpensive. So sometimes you need to spend money to make money, and I get that, but I'm curious on what the expense would be.
I would look to Evan for that, but the parking meters that we're installing now, the T2s, are $6,606 per unit. I don't know whether the parking spaces for 30 spaces would require 1 or 2 machines, but I would look to Mr. Miller for a response to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So you're absolutely right in terms of the cost for the equipment itself. We do pay monthly fees as well, just so we have access to the back-end software to be able to view all the details and transaction information for the pay stations. That equivalates to about $60 a month per pay station. One recommendation that I would have is to consider maybe just installing 1 parking meter. I was just looking at Google Maps Street View. I think we could get away with just installing 1 meter next to the visitor center. That way it sort of captures the, I guess, east side of the lot, which is some of the spaces that are a bit further away from the museum and Main Street, because I believe those spaces would be used, obviously, for those visitors. And then also the charge, or there is no real fee for implementing Park Mobile. It's simply just, getting in touch with them, establishing it as a zone, giving them certain information about rates and hours, things like that. I've been in communication with Park Mobile, and at least over the last year or so, they've offered to pay for signage for us. So really the fee to implement Park Mobile, the only thing that we would see is just they would take a percentage of whatever revenue is collected through Park Mobile.
And that's the exact program we're following with all other meters in the city, correct?
Correct.
One last question that I think Evan is probably best to answer. Would we need to hire another part-time parking meter person if we were to extend to that lot?
No, so what we would do is just the LPR enforcement. So we currently have 2 vehicles dedicated to enforcement. Last year, we actually ordered the second vehicle, and we have that now, but we weren't able to use both vehicles because of just COVID reasons, staffing concerns, things like that. So we have all the equipment necessary. It's just a matter of bringing the parking enforcement staff back on full force as compared to years past, and just enforcing it through the existing means and methods that we have.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrne?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm very supportive of the concept that Commissioner Gossett has put forward. I think the questions about appropriate number of parking spaces for our allied agencies there are very appropriate. I'm just wondering, Commissioner Gossett, if you took into account meterless Mondays in terms of the final figures. I didn't see that in your.
No, I did not. At the time that I made the initial proposal, we had not finalized meterless Mondays, so I didn't know how many days that we would
right
on that or what have you. But it's let's see here, meterless Mondays. I believe it is. I don't have the exact figure. It's $7,500 a day is what the city manager estimated that revenue offset by doing meterless Mondays. So we don't have an exact figure, I guess, on per meter. But it would have an impact, no question about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
I too want to thank Patrick for all the work you've done. It's just great. I want to remind everybody, however, that if we would adopt Sussex County's sewer impact fee, we could make $63,000 with just 10 new hookups. Let's do it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess some of my reaction to this is I'm supportive. I would like us to check with the agencies. I think each agency has different parking needs. The visitor center that the chamber runs, they might offer that they have an average of 4 persons there at any one time. I think that would be important to know, and what their average turnaround is. I imagine at the visitor center, they're only there 5 minutes at a time, possibly. The museum, what's their average number there and what's their average turnaround time? It might be that their average visitor is there for an hour, and so that might result in the need for additional space or spaces. Main Street, probably the least amount of visitors there that are driving in. I imagine a lot of the businesses can walk or take a scooter or something there. But I'd like to check with them. I'd also like to suggest that Sharon check with the parking department, run this proposal by them, see if they have any further comment on it as well.
If you're asking me, I would be happy to reach out to the 3 businesses or aspects around the parking lot there. But again, and I'll be happy to talk with them, but we are not diminishing anything that they currently already have.
Yeah, but let's say you have 2 spaces for the museum that are reserved. They still got the opportunity to pick any other space in that parking lot because it's free. The difference with this program is they will have the 2 reserved spots, and they will not be able to pick any new space that's free, unless it's on a certain day or something. So I would welcome reaching out to them. I think it's a courtesy.
I would be
thing
happy to,
do.
but you'll notice in my proposal in line 42, I would say establish city policies and procedures for the following. And the first one is providing dashboard passes, so that if there are a request for additional museum visitors or visitors to the visitor center or Main Street, that they would have the ability to stick a dashboard pass in their dashboard to allow free parking for their visiting time there. So again, I'll be happy to reach out and work through the details of that. But currently, the program does not diminish anything that the agencies already have available to them. Plus, I believe the dashboard passes would offer something additional that they could utilize.
Well, I would appreciate you reaching out and explaining to them as a courtesy, and they may have no feedback, especially with the program you indicated, the additional spaces by use of a dash pass. Commissioner Calusi. You're muted.
I just wanted to say that I do support Commissioner Gossett's program. And I think the big difference here that he just mentioned is the dashboard passes. And I think when he communicates with them, I think that should be suitable for either any of the three of them, that someone comes into the museum, there's not a space available, they can offer that pass to them. So I think it's a good program, and I'd like to see us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a consensus among commissioners? It seems to be a consensus among commissioners to move forward with this. We can put this on our next budget meeting for discussion, but I'd like your comments. I'd feel comfortable charging Glenn with drafting the first draft of a code amendment to accommodate this. Question mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward with it. Thank you very much for your efforts on this, Commissioner Gossett. We appreciate it.
Sure.
So we'll get, at the next meeting, we'll also get feedback from you on contact with the agencies, as well as feedback from the parking department through Sharon Lynn. Thank you very much. Any other comments by the commissioners? If not, I'm going to go to the members of the public. If I can find their list by memory, Walter Brittingham. Here we go.
Thank you. I think here we are at the end of February. The city's got a lot of work to do. The Public Works has got a lot of work to do. We got signing problems. We have improvements to make that need to be done. And now you're starting something at the beginning of the season, and Carol talked with you earlier, and I don't know what the state of the city's maps are, but this is by good intent, and it's about the money, but this is going to cause a lot of problems and a lot of frustrations, and you need to be able to let the people in to Grove Park. You're not going to want to offend the little kids. You're not going to want to offend Main Street. You're not going to allow employee parking, as I understand it. Here we have one more complication with the Grove Park, and I think this needs to be perfected. And it doesn't say you couldn't implement it later on when you got all the notches and everything taken out of it. But this is being done in the wrong order, and I don't think the city has the staff to put this together correctly. I would say if you want to put 2-hour parking in there or something, but you've already got the police checking the dock and everybody else going on. We're running out of people, we're running out of time, and good intent goes a long way, but this is a late date to be starting something new. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Patricia Davis?
No comment, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Julie's still off. Terry's still off. Gary Glass, please.
Good discussion, good project. I think it's great for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Walter's comments reminded me that we have a parking map coming up. I assume that we have not started that yet, but if we did this, hopefully we'd be able to capture that in the parking map. I do think the boat has sailed on the Chamber of Commerce brochure that normally articulates and defines where all the parking is. So there would be an omission there. So, I would offer you, Walter's comment on, when should this be implemented? For this summer or for the following summer? Any comment?
Yes.
Well,
I do.
I would go to the city manager and ask her advice. Can it happen realistically with the staff power that we have right now?
Mr. Miller pointed out, we do have the staff and the 2 vehicles, and we're, after the, hopefully the budget is adopted by the commissioners, we'll be ordering 30 new meters, and we would need one additional for 30 T2 meters, but one additional pay station for Grove Park.
So the answer sounds like yes, you have the ability to
Yes.
get this implemented and up and running this summer.
Yes.
Commissioner Calusi?
Yes, I would suggest that although the parking map is great, the majority of people who come into town are looking for signage in terms of parking, et cetera. So I really, in all due respect to Mr. Brittingham, I think that we still could move forward with this program, and it would be reasonable to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, not hearing any disfavor with implementing it this summer, then we'll move in that direction. That's all right? Okay, very good. We'll go on to the next item of business, which is returning to Commissioner Legree. If you want to reiterate what you were starting to talk about earlier, stormwater management, I believe, and address that in terms of funding needs.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear Public Works Director Williams make a presentation and talk about where we are. I'm sure there are payments, off-book payments being made that we had to make. We have phase 3A and 3B that are ongoing, and I'm sure there are payments coming due on them. I'd like to hear about that. It's not too early to be planning phase 4, and I have no idea how that's been prioritized. All I have is the timing schedule that Mr. Williams made, and I'm sure these funds are being spent judiciously. We just need to know, or I want to know where and what and what's coming down the line. Does that answer your question at all?
Sure. Anybody else have a comment on that? So Commissioner Calusi?
Yes. So Commissioner Legree mentioned earlier that, we're looking as far as the CIP, and this is sort of not exactly related, but somewhat, that in 2024, we're looking at additional $6 million for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. I think I would, and I'm going on the record, that I would like to see on the agenda about having another conversation with the county about taking over our wastewater treatment plant, because it would be, I think, make a lot of sense for us in terms of the money that we would not have to spend, the $6 million. It would then be potentially, and of course, we don't have any type of deal or anything presentation for them at this point, but I would think that there would be something that we could look at. Again, if you remember, they had talked to us at the end of the unfortunate the way it all unfolded, but they could give us one bill that we could then use the meters for putting that information or putting the bills out to the residents.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay, are you on that same topic?
Oh, I was just going to clarify that I thought the county was already paying for 42%, is it? So that number is, we're responsible for it, but some of that 6 million or whatever it is that year is actually already paid by the county, correct? I was just wanting to clarify that.
Yes.
That's correct. And if after 1 year, after 365 days, once we have completed 3B, the county has the option to go up to 50%.
All right.
And I'd like to remind Commissioner Calusi that the debt doesn't go away. We keep that debt. And as long as we're working with the county, they are either taking 42% or 50%, depending on their option, of all the upgrades, the debt service, and then their share of the O&M expenses. So this is certainly a huge benefit for us. And I would like to make this clear to the public. As long as we own this, we can control what gets pumped out in the ocean off of our beaches. Once we lose that, we'll have no say for the rest of our lives as to what gets pumped out of that outfall. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that, and I can have a lot more to say on that down the road. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
It's also just to confirm, I believe that in keeping it with not having a further agreement with the county, that we're able to control the rates so that if we turn it over to the county, the rate structure is open to the county and they can increase or make any changes to that rate structure that they wish. Right now, it is in the city's control, and I feel personally that it is best to keep it under city control as long as we can. So, thank you.
All right, well, obviously, this is not an agenda topic. Pat, I hear you, and I'll confer with the city manager and Kevin. But if we were to pursue that, I would want it as an agenda topic so that all the commissioners could have input at that time and vote on whether to invite the county back again
That
or
is what
not.
I suggested. I suggested that it be an agenda item for discussion, and I think that's important.
Right, so we'll, there's no absolute rush on there, but we'll be looking at it. Thank you very much. Anything else on the agenda there's nothing else on the agenda other than a general discussion of funding mechanisms or funding options, project CIP, the general budget. Have we exhausted everything? Let me go to the public one last time, Commissioner, if that's all right, and just see if they have anything broad to add to anything. We just had that last conversation about the county. Again, it's not on the agenda, so I'm really not interested in entertaining any questions from the public on whether to approach the county or not again. But just generally, Walter, do you have any general comment?
We definitely do not want to let the county control the rates because the county's rates in many cases are lower. They average it out. But nonetheless, it was a very good meeting this morning. I congratulate you all for a lot of very thoughtful questions and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Walter. Patricia Davis, any general comments or questions?
No, thank you. No comment, but thank you all for your work. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Julie and Terry are still off. Gary Glass?
No comment, but thank you for your contributions and all the hard work.
Thank you, Gary. Commissioner Legree, did you have final comments? Here.
Before we leave the CIP, I just want to remind everybody that there's no way that the accretion project in Lake Gerar can go forward without a stormwater management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any staff have anything to add? Nope. Any commissioners, any further comment? If not, I don't have a second page of my agenda. I believe that's it. A reminder that we're meeting today again at 3 o'clock for our regular meeting.
2 o'clock.
I'm sorry, we moved it up to 2 o'clock. Thank you. Would have been an hour late. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting today, budget meeting.